Seahawks for what, 8 years now, 9 years? What's the biggest benefit you think they get from working with a sports psychologist?
It's a good question. Maybe better for them to answer. But the main tenets of applied sports psychology is using best practices from an evidence standpoint on the most dynamic ways to train the mind. So there's three things as humans that we can train. We can train our craft, we can train our body, and we can train our mind. And best of the best, the tip of the arrow performers and athletes across the planet are not leaving any one of those three up to chance. And so this is a sophisticated, thoughtful, grounded approach in how to train the mind.
When you think of working with Pete Carroll and the things that he brings to the table as far as his enthusiasm and his belief in what you do, how helpful is it to work with a guy like that who's so much in your corner and so much a believer?
Relationships are the artifact of culture. And what that means is Coach Carroll has built an amazing culture at the Seattle Seahawks that is relationship-based. It is about people straining and striving and working together towards their upper capabilities. And to be able to partner with a head coach that is that connected to people flourishing is it's exactly what we would hope for. And it feels to me like, 2 + 2 is something far greater than 4 when you put those synergies together.
How can some of this relate to the everyday person?
One of the most powerful insights is that we all have a mind, and if you don't train your mind, we leave it a bit undisciplined. And there's nothing wrong with an undisciplined mind, but it's easily distracted. It sometimes grabs onto the thing that they're trying to protect against. And so the way our brain works is to scan the world and find what's dangerous and to protect against it. And right now, in the current situation that we're in, our brain is hypersensitive to information about our future. So if people are finding themselves looking for more information, turning on different news sources to find out how the future is going to play out for them, it's normal. So that's what the brain is supposed to do. But the mind, which is the software that runs the brain, the mind is, if it's left undisciplined, the brain will win and it will put us into a panic, anxious state. So optimism is one of the ways to train our mind to also find what's good. So again, our brain is trying to scan the world and find what's dangerous for survival. Optimism is the ability to find what's good in the future or good in the present moment. So one of the ways that we train it is, one, value it. And so if you value something, you take care of it and you cultivate it and you grow it just like you would a plant or a tree. So we wake up in the morning and make a commitment to explore what is good, to find what is amazing. And then at the end of the day, this is a simple little research-based approach. At the end of the day, you write down at least 3 things that were amazing. And what that does is it helps to anchor and remind you of what you experienced that was great. But the real work is to go into the world and find what's good and be part of that good experience. That's over 7 days. Research has found that small little training process actually begins to shift our mind and our brain in positive directions.
People these days especially need that positivity, and they need to have that positive outlook on things, because it's real easy these days to get yourself in a hole and be down in the dumps.
If we don't train our mind, our brain will win. And our brain is designed to find the danger and be hyper-focused on it to try to figure out how to work with it. And so if we don't train our minds, our brain will win. And I just want to add, an untrained mind has a second layer of challenge to it, which is imagination is a big part of the human experience. And if we don't check our imagination, if we don't work with our imagination properly and we let it run wild, we will find ourselves anxious, especially in the times that we're in right now. And so being able to work with our imagination in productive ways is part of somebody who has conditioned their mind.
We're in such a look at me world right now with everybody on social media and things like that. Can you explain a little bit about what disease me means?
The disease of me.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the opposite of we. And it's not a phrase that I coined, but it is the relentless, pervasive look at me culture or look at me mindset. And it's born out of something that I want to go back to the brain again. So there's a network in the brain called the default mode network. And so what that means is that it's the part of the brain that's on most of the time. It's the default, it's the idle. And the default mode network is constantly checking to see, am I okay? Does she think I'm okay? Does he think I'm okay? Am I okay? And so it's this constant checking in if I'm okay is what we think might be part of the origins of suffering, because it's constantly absorbing, like, am I okay? Am I okay? So the disease of me is born out of this insecurity. Am I okay? Well, let me show you that I'm good. Let me show you that I'm doing extraordinary things. Let me show you. And what we're finding is that the we culture is stronger than the me culture. But what we have found is that the best of the best of the best are no longer adopting this model that I need to do extraordinary things to be extraordinary. What they're sharing with us is that we need to flip that model. I need to be more and let the doing flow from there. So the be more to do more. Be more what? Be more present, be more grounded, be more connected, be more creative. And from that point, let the doing flow. So the old model, I need to do more to be more, is broken. And the more progressive model is I need to be more. And the time couldn't be more eloquent right now for people to reinvest and recalibrate of what it feels like to be right here, right now, in your own body, in your own mind, in these uncertain times.
I think that's a great point, because we're all kind of holed up in our houses, and we can't really go anywhere. And it is a good time to do some self-evaluation, isn't it?
Now is the right time to recalibrate, to recalibrate against two things. One of the things that I think is really important is that athletes are very practiced at managing uncertainty. They're very skilled at it. Every game that they go into, the outcome is uncertain. And what they demonstrate and what they train for is bringing everything they have to give themselves the best chance for success. And that's the skill and the art of becoming world class or becoming one's very best. And so there's lots to learn from athletes right now, which is train your mind, your body, your craft, bring everything you can, do not hold back, and let it ride, like figure it out in that way, and then adjust accordingly. So right now in unprecedented high uncertainty times is that our job is to bring everything that we have to pivot and to adjust to the unfolding, unpredictable experiences. So athletes, the ability to manage stress and pressure is because they are well trained, and then they trust themselves to adjust accordingly.
These athletes you're talking about, especially the football players, they're going to be missing out on a lot of training, a lot of camps, practices, and they may not get back to work, if they're lucky, till the end of July. So, talk about their situation, how they almost have to rise above this and take their game to another level, because this is unprecedented for them too as they prepare for a new season.
Yeah, absolutely. The athletes who are purpose driven and are mission minded, this is just something that they're going to manage and deal with. The athletes that are struggling with mission and purpose, this might be a harder phase for them. And so when purpose is really clear, we can deal with much. And so there's much to deal with right now. The uncertainty from an economic standpoint and from a health standpoint, there's lots of people that are going to be affected by this. And of course, the athletes that are involved, the NFL is a little bit different because we've got some time. And so their purpose right now is to invest in themselves and their teammates to give themselves the best chance, come start of the season, whenever that might be for us.
When you talk with Seahawks and maybe other athletic programs and other teams, can you sense whether players are buying into what you have to say?
I haven't met an athlete or coach on the world stage that doesn't value the mental part of the game. And whether it's something I'm saying or something they already know, this is what is unique about world-class athletics, is that psychology is an integrated part of them becoming their very best. And so there are certain messages and certain messengers that don't calibrate well with certain people. And so part of a dynamic culture, which Coach Carroll has put together, is having different people connect with, said groups. And so, each personality is uniquely hand-picked, if you will, and cultivated by Coach Carroll to meet the unique challenges of the room, that the athletes are in. So, yeah, for sure, there are times when the message or the messenger isn't the right fit, but we learn that and we course correct and adjust and adjust and adjust. And that's the name of the game, is, identifying a shared mission, a shared vision, and all of us nodding our head to that's what we're going to do together, and then locking arms, building the relationship to be able to get after that very difficult, hard thing together. Because what happens for most individuals and teams is that they can shape the idea of what they want to go after, this big, lofty, audacious goal. But at the moment of real test, oftentimes people will unlock their arms and they'll try to save their own self. They'll blame others, or they'll try to find safety. And that is not the way to the extraordinary. Stay connected to the shared vision. And in the maritime world, they have this phrase that when times get tough, they say, hold fast and stay true. So hold fast to each other, to wood. Grab something you trust. Maybe it's another human, maybe it's wood. And then you send a message back up to the captain, stay true to the mission. And so that is what a dynamic team does. They hold fast, they know each other, they trust each other, and they stay true to the shared vision.
And just listening to you say that, it sounds like you could bring that into your own household where, especially nowadays, where you might lose it sometimes and you just have to stay true and stay disciplined, huh?
Yeah. So right now, this beautiful forcing function calibration moment for us all. We are operating in ways that we never thought we were going to do, right? Which is, we're working from home, we're managing an environment in a completely different way. People are cut off from their sanctuaries outside of their home, the places that they felt safe and vibrant and competent. And so there is a new normal that's taking place. Families right now can take advantage of that by having conversations about, hey, what is our purpose together? And you could do a grand idea, like, what's our big purpose in life? But you can also thin slice it, like, what's our purpose for each other over the next month? And what we find in the science of purpose is that there's 3 components. 1, nobody can give you purpose. It has to matter to you. The second is that it's got to be bigger than you. It's got to be outside of you. And the third is that it's down the road just a bit. So it's future oriented. If you get those 3 components, if something matters to you, it's bigger than you, and it's down the road, and you can calibrate that with other people, it's awesome. It's a great binding experience for people.
Say you leave the Seahawks facility after you've spoken to the team. Everybody thinks, oh man, this is great, man. I'm really going to get after it. And I know people like that, where it's a great idea and they want to run with it, but they don't hold themselves accountable. They're not disciplined enough to keep this going or even take that first step. So I would imagine that when you walk out someday, we're all feeling pumped up and everything. But what's the key to saying, I'm really going to do this? I'm really going to stick with what Michael Gervais said.
Well, it's not so much about what I say, but it's about the shared commitment together. And this is where Coach Carroll has an incredible skill that he has been able to apply at the Seattle Seahawks, is to build a culture that values hard work, has old school traditional values of doing the hard things together. And we're going to strain and strive together to find our individual and collective best. And so that is where the spirit of competition comes from for him. And he's built a culture around it. And he's also built a culture on, we need each other to challenge each other, to take us further, to hold each other to the highest standards possible. And so, when someone's down, we pick them up. And when someone's struggling, we nudge them. And when someone is doing extraordinarily well, we celebrate. And so that is what just a rich community is about. So it's not one individual. It's not when one person leaves the room, we feel better. It's about us together sharing an experience and sharing the vision of what we believe is possible if we all apply ourselves.
Have you run across a Seahawk or anybody individually where they you pulled them aside and had a chat with them and realized, wow, this guy really gets it? Like, is there a certain player or two on that team that you could cite as an example?
Without talking about individual players, I would say that great detail goes in by John Schneider and Pete Carroll to find the athletes that want to work together, that understand the value of competing to refine your craft, your body, and your mind. And so it is the water that we swim in. I would be hard pressed to do the opposite, which is to find an athlete that said, you know what, I'm not interested in this, and that is harder. And maybe it's just not the right place for them, and maybe it's, and that's fine. Cultural fit is really important for people's wellness and health and obviously performance. And so, I'd say the majority of people are like, yeah, let's go. Let's see how far we can take this thing.
What's the difference in talking to somebody on a team sport like football and talking to someone like Luke Akins, who's a daredevil? Like, tell me when you're dealing with those two personalities, it's got to be quite a contrast.
Well, actually, the insight is that nobody does it alone. Individual athletes and individual contributors in business, or nobody in this planet does it alone. And so whether you're an individual in an individual sport like Luke Akins jumping from 30,000 feet without a parachute into a 16-story net that he built, or you're part of the Seattle Seahawks, that there is a community, there's a tribe, there's a group of people that are supporting and challenge each other as we go. And so both are highly skilled, both are community minded, both have a clarity of a vision of what they're trying to sort out, and both rely on both their internal skills and their external resources. And so there's more similarities than differences.
Who else do you work with other than Seahawks? And like, can you give me an example of some other teams or other athletes you've worked with?
I spent a long time with Red Bull and working in the backcountry in some very high risk, high consequential environments. Red Bull Stratos is one of the big ones there. I spent some time with the LA Lakers. I've consulted with inside of every major sport, and worked with Hall of Fame athletes across each sport. So without getting into the nuances and the details of it, because that's all private, so there's a boundary that I got to be mindful of not to share. But there's been some public record with the Lakers. There's obviously public record with the Seahawks. And across 3 Olympics too. I should mention that, Kerry Walsh-Jennings, that's been public record. If you did a quick little search, you'd find a bunch of athletes that talk about it, but I just never feel right talking about it.
I would imagine that they all have this tremendous amount of self-confidence, and like, I think Russell Wilson's a great example of someone who never panics and is always, at least seemingly, in control in the tightest situations.
Yeah, I mean, people are extraordinary. People have the ability to do so much in their lives. And the things that bind us up and constrict us is fear of the unknown and fear of our ability to manage ourselves when it gets pressure packed. But when you're purpose driven and you're mission minded, you end up dissolving pressure. And so it is a psychological skill to be able to be in the present moment. And for most people, that requires some work. And some people, their purpose is so big that they're not training their mind, but they're living in alignment with their purpose. And something I've learned from, I spent some time with on the USS Truman working with fighter pilots and the XOCO. Like, there's stuff out there that you can Google or that you can check into. But the insight there is that from the special operators, is that when something matters to you, you'll do whatever it takes. And so part of this work right now is for us to recalibrate to what matters most, and then align ourselves when it really matters, align ourselves and put everything we have into that. So it's a powerful moment. And people like Russell Wilson and Coach Carroll and Luke Akins and fill in the blank, Kerry Walsh-Jennings, they are mission minded. They're purpose driven people.
The most important thing for these guys, for people to remember at home, like if you're giving them a message with some of the great tools that you have, what would be the one thing to remember this time of life?
That's a good question. If there was one takeaway for right now, is that most people are feeling unprecedented levels of stress. And so managing the stress is really about your relationship with it. And so what happens for most people is they start to feel out of control when they're challenged in ways that are new. And so it's easy to feel out of control. The way to work with stress is twofold. One is to recalibrate back to the things that are 100% under your control and master those. Really invest in those. And the things that are 100% under your control are your thoughts and your actions. So during this time of high stress, come back to what's in your control and have great thoughts. Have great actions that are productive, that are positive. Right now, you need to be your best coach. And so speak to your ways in the same way that you would speak to some of your best friends. Like remind yourself that you got it, that you're going to figure it out, that you can do hard things. So that's one. The second is recovery. With great stress, there's a requirement for great recovery. The COVID virus is going to be met at your immune system. When stress is high and chronic, there is a compromise that happens to our immune systems. So there's 4 basic pillars to recovery. We got to sleep right. We got to eat well. All the leafy vegetables that grandma told you to eat, right now is the time to do it. The third is we need to move well. We need to get our heart rate up. We need to remind our brain that our body is important. And so daily or regular exercise is really important for immune health right now. And then the fourth is to think well. And thinking well is about focusing on what's good right now, what could be good in the future, and then also having that sense of confidence that you have what it takes to adjust to the unpredictable, unfolding, unknown future that we're all experiencing right now.
That's fascinating, man. I could listen to you all day long. I know I've taken probably a lot more time than you probably wanted to give me, but I really appreciate the time and the insight from you today, Michael.
No, listen, I want to say thank you because you hold access to the health of many people. And so what you share is really important. And right now, I'm honored that we're having this conversation. And the only other thing that I would add is I'm taking probably 200 to 300 deep, long exhales a day. And a long exhale sends a signal to our ancient brain that we're okay. And so right now, even if you're not sure exactly, like if you don't feel very stressed, a long exhale sends a signal like, hey, relax a little bit. And so I'm taking 200-300 long breaths throughout the day just to remind myself, hey, settle in, we're okay, we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, you say that, and I've been told in the past to take time and take that breathe in and, from the diaphragm and all this. I can't even do it for 10 seconds once a day. I can't even coach myself. You're doing it 200 to 300 times a day. Like how,
No, it's just one breath. Like, listen, it's this simple. Go ahead and sit up. I'm going to coach you up right now. Okay, go ahead and sit up, right? So you're going to go in through your nose, start in your diaphragm. So breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up. Feel the tension at the top. Hold it for 4 more. And then let go for 8. Just let it go through your nose. Through your nose. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now just pause. Just pause. We're going to do one more. Okay, breathe in for 4. Breathe in through your nose. Feel that tension? Take a little extra sip. You can do more.
Yeah.
2. Now let it go through your nose. Just let it go. Enjoy it. Let it drop out.
It's relaxing, man. That feels good, but I don't know if I can do it 200 to 300 times a day.
I'm just doing one at a time. That's it. Just one at a time.
That's a great message too, because people get caught up in the big picture instead of just doing what's in front of them, huh?
Yeah. So I would say, like on the thin slice is 1 breath at a time to relax your system. Another thin slice is remind yourself of what's in your control right now. And the third thin slice is to focus on what is good in this moment and what could be good. Those are the 3 ways to reorientate yourself from a moment-to-moment standpoint.
Man, multiple great messages, man. I really appreciate your time, Michael, and we're going to get this out to a lot of people, so I appreciate it.
Paul, call anytime. I appreciate you.